Jason, welcome to Gulf War Side Effects. How are you doing today?
Not doing well. I don't do well any day really anymore.
What years were you in?
I was in from 89 to 92. I only did 3 years because I went in undesignated and they kind of, it's the same thing as a full term. They just tacked on extra reserve years instead of active years is what the enlistment was.
Okay. Yeah, I was a bosun mate. I know what you're talking about there. But
Yeah, I
that,
went in undesignated because I was going to, I would tested really high on the ASFAB and I was really lucky to be born super smart. My dad has or he had, he just passed away last year. Unfortunately, he's a vet as well. And he died early. My grandpa too. And anyway, he had a photographic memory, and I guess I was blessed with some of that. I never had a photographic memory, but it was probably dang close. And I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And, I asked my recruiter, I was like, well, they wanted me in nukes and advanced electronics and all the things I was interested in electronics. And I was like, do you have something where I can kind of see what these jobs are, all these jobs that you're telling me before I sign my whole life away? Because a lot of those programs, especially the nuke and all that, you're basically doing 20 years, the advanced electronics fields were 8 years or something like that, or 10, I think, maybe including school. So I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I went in undesignated and that's how I landed in the mess.
well, hold on. What did you score on your ASFAB?
I don't remember. It
Man,
was super high though.
must be nice. I made a 28.
Yeah, I have a hard time remembering anything these days. My short term memory was going first, but my long term memory has been going as well. I kind of noticed that, forgetting things, because when you're lucky to be blessed, super smart, you remember a lot more detail than most people remember. And I started seeing those impacts, right away after the Gulf, in my early 20s. And I just didn't accept that it was real, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And now, like since 2015 or so, when I couldn't really work anymore because of it, and all these, I kept losing jobs you know, um, and I didn't know what was going on with me. Up to that point, I had no idea I had any cognitive impact.
What kind of ship were you on?
I was on a fast frigate guided missile FFG,
Okay. What was the name of it?
USS Kurtz.
Okay. I probably unripped you while we were out there.
Probably, we were the farthest north ship of the fleet. We captured that island, if you remember that.
Yeah.
We were involved in that, and we were basically the reason why we're the farthest north ship is we had a SEAL team and a Army team on board, EODs, electronic ordnance disposal teams, and they were detonating and disarming mines to clear a pathway for the fleet to get up to Kuwait City.
Wow. Holy crap. I'm glad I wasn't on your ship.
Yeah, and what's really crazy about it is, we were doing that, and that's where I could have got some of my sarin or other, chemical exposure as well. But we were doing that, and for most of the beginning of that conflict, and then for some reason, I don't remember all the details, but for some reason we were told to go to like Abu Dhabi or Bahrain. I can't even remember which one it was, but and we were relieved by that Marine amphibious aircraft carrier and some or maybe it was just them or part of their group or something, but they relieved us while we went down to port, and we were in port. And the very morning that we came back to relieve them and continue what we were doing, they hit a mine. And I don't know if you remember that, but they hit a mine, and the front lookout died, and a bunch of other people got hurt. I don't remember how many died altogether, but we felt really lucky because and it's very sad too,
Right.
that happened. But it could have been us, and if it was us, it would have been a lot worse because an FFG is a lot smaller than a big amphibious helicopter marine aircraft carrier thing. So I can't even remember the name of the ship. I used to know it, and that's the kind of stuff that goes.
Right. And that's the one thing that I was looking up, because I think they said only 2 ships during Desert Storm hit a mine. And I was like, that's impossible, because I know like the Andrew J. Higgins hit one. And the 2 that they said weren't even the ones I remember hitting a mine. And I'm like, well,
Interesting.
yeah, because I was like, well, who in the hell documents this crap? Because they sure in the they sure in the hell weren't there when I was there then, because I remember the Andrew J. Higgins hitting a mine. It put a big old hole on the side of their ship.
I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where our berthing compartments were. Is down along the water line there, pretty much where it would hit. If you're driving forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Ours as a supply up in the Ford area would have been more cargo space.
see, and that's the way to do it too. Yeah, that's where most of the people were working and sleeping. It's on our ship. It's up more forward. I mean, it's middle-ish to forward, between middle and going forward, but it's such a small ship.
Yeah.
So,
Well, what kind of issues are you having?
everything, man. Every system in my body is breaking down. I have liver problems. I have cardio problems. I have gastro problems. I have cognitive problems. I have neurological, neuropathy issues. I have skin issues. I'm starting to have kidney issues. Yeah, it's everything.
And is the VA taking care of you on this stuff?
No, not at all. So I've had I don't want to get into too much detail because it's a very long story. So I'll try and keep it as bird's eye view as possible. But to sum it up, I first had symptoms, right after I got out. So the end of Desert Storm was, February or so of 91. And I got out in just about a year later, just over a year later. And I can't remember exactly. I think I was sick more, between Desert Storm and getting out that last year, I think I did feel I was going to I remember going to the doctor's office. And the reason why I do remember that is because I was also not only lucky to be born with a very high intelligence and almost photographic memory, but I also had like no health issues. I had, anytime I got sick as a kid, I beat it really quick. Like sometimes I beat it before like a flu, for instance, I'd start to come down with the flu, and like everybody in my family would be coming down with the flu or whatever, passing it around. And then I would just suddenly start getting better, and I'd be better while everybody else is like getting worse. So I've been really lucky to have a body that really heals itself. And I think it still does that a bunch, but it's starting not to work anymore.
Yeah.
And that healing is not as robust as it used to be. And quite honestly, I'm not saying this stuff to brag. I'm saying this stuff because I think that's the only reason why I'm still alive, and the only reason why, my intelligence is the only reason why I am able to talk to you now as coherently as I am, because I've taken a big hit there. And I'm not smart anymore. I feel like an idiot, and I know I'm not. I know I do have a lot of my long-term memory. I'm an engineer. I got a bachelor's in electronic engineering, and I got a master's in business administration. Even with the early onset of these symptoms, that were happening right after, I got out of the military, went right to school. I was feeling sick right away, going to the VA, and, um, just excelling in school, 4.0 student, honors, everything. And, but my master's, years later, almost a decade later, wasn't that, I wasn't an overachiever like that, and it just was getting worse and worse and worse. Right. And so that's basically what happened is, those first 10 years or so, feeling it right away. I'm going to the VA and I'm complaining about, night sweats, and I've had diarrhea ever since. I never shit solid. Oh, sorry.
No.
Language.
Speak your piece, man. Hey,
Okay.
One
I'm
thing you're
not
going to
sure your
learn.
audience and stuff.
No.
Great.
One thing you're going to learn. I don't want any vet to hold back, because I'm telling you,
Okay.
everything you're saying, I promise you, I've already said it.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I just didn't know. I know of your page, and I've seen some of your lives before, but you're pretty new to me. So right. I don't want to offend anybody is all.
You won't.
That's something that we all do, because we're not aware of the thing, the cognitive impacts that we have, a lot of us. And, that created, the situations in my workplace and relationships where I feel like I'm doing the right thing because I feel I'm a good, honest person, right? And then because of the cognitive impact, and I forget things, or I get aggressive, when I don't realize I'm getting aggressive, all those kinds of things, just to give a few examples, create situations where people don't want to be around us. And that's why so many of us are alone. That's why so many of our friends and family leave us, is because of this. And I didn't even know about any of this until recently. I'm just starting to figure all this stuff out because I'm trying to save my life and because the VA isn't helping me, and I'm just trying to save my life and trying to learn all the things that I should have been learning these past 30 years, and the reason why I haven't been learning this stuff the past 30 years, and I've been learning engineering and business and, all these other subjects, that isn't helping my health or my relationships. I even forgot what I was going to say, and that happens a lot too. But I think the point that I'm trying to get at there about all of this is that, in the very beginning, and this is the biggest crime, I think, and what I am so upset about the VA and our government and everything, and I can't believe nobody else sees this. A lot of people see it, but most people don't see this, is that, we have been lied to this whole time. People like Denise Nichols and all the vets that, I don't even remember all the names, but all those people that are fighting Congress ever since the 90s, all of them are heroes. And I'm sorry, I'm getting a little emotional sometimes too.
It's fine.
But they are heroes of America, and they take so much crap from people, including, the VA or whoever comes into our forums and stuff like that attacks them. They just take so much, and they just keep pushing and giving and giving. And I didn't even know about any of that back then, you know, and because I was going to the VA and being told, you know, they're doing all these tests, and I'm being told, oh, we don't see anything wrong with this test. Oh, you know, we see this little thing wrong here, but you know, like my breathing, we see problem. On your pulmonary test, we see impairment at 22 years of age.
Right.
But it's your smoking. You've been smoking for a couple years. That's what did that to you. So that is a lie. And that's what the VA told me back in 1992. And that isn't the only lie they told me. They told me all the other lies about, you know, it's all in your head. And some of them didn't know this. Granted, these are all people. They're human beings. They're not part of the quote unquote corrupted system that doesn't want to accept responsibility for what they did to us. It isn't even that the enemy did this to us. They did this to us. And not only did they do this to us, but they continue to do this to us. The Operation Iraqi Freedom, the other Iraqi or whole Afghanistan too, the whole theater, and probably other places too that are exposed to various toxins that we were exposed to, they haven't changed any of it. They still do it, and there's still people that are sick. And so, you know, during those first 10 years where I'm begging for help and I'm being told, we don't see anything wrong here, Gulf War syndrome, what they called it back then. And the syndrome was deliberate, because syndrome is kind of one of those words that you just hear syndrome and it just sounds like massive, you know,
Right.
like Down syndrome or, you know, all these things. It's like massive. And then they see that you look perfectly okay, right? And they're going, what kind of syndrome does this person have? They don't have a syndrome. It's all in their head. So I feel that was deliberate, and they still even use that today. They still use, even though through congressional hearings and all this stuff that was happening when I wasn't paying attention to it, because I was trying to get help and I was being told I'm crazy and there's nothing wrong with me. And even though I knew something was wrong with me, I was like, well, there's nothing I can do about it. So I just have to live with it. And then when you make that decision, you're just like, okay, well, if I have to live with it, I really don't want to think about it. And so you don't think about it, or try not to think about it. At least that's what I did. And I think that's what a lot of people are doing, is they're just living with it and they're trying not to think about it, because it's hard. It's very hard, and people don't understand how hard it is. And it has varying levels of difficulty for each of us.
And it does.
Go ahead, sir. I've been talking too
long.
No,
it's okay. I want to bring that. I want to bring this point up to you. This is where everybody needs to understand we're not alone. The word's out there now. My goal isn't for, I mean, they're not going to find a cure for us. I know this. I mean, most of us need to come to terms and facts that our age group, our generation got screwed. But let's be the last ones that get screwed. Let's don't let our kids and our grandkids get screwed over by our mistakes. This is where we stand up. This is where we just say, hey, y'all can kiss our ass. It's time for us to take this back, and y'all aren't going to do this to the men and women who are out there fighting for y'all.
Yeah.
And I, you know, earlier when you were talking about, you know, you're apologizing for him being emotional. Why? There's no need for anybody to feel bad about how they feel, because I mean, I've been in that same predicament. Like, you know, now I started getting these tremors, and the first thing they did is say, hey, you got essential tremors. And over the last 3 months, I noticed my tremors getting worse. And finally, I called my doctor out on it. I said, this is bullshit. I was like, something else is going on, and I want an appointment. And we're going to go in. We're going to figure out exactly what's making my head, my arms, and my body shakes. It's just
Yeah.
it doesn't happen overnight. And when you were talking about that you were having the shits, you know, that I haven't had a complete normal bowel movement from day one I got home neither.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
normal.
We have a lot of these common things too, but we also, because of the type and nature of the damage and the various, so there's different toxic exposures that we were all subjected to. There's different lengths of those exposures. There's different combinations of those exposures. There's different genetics in each of us. And there's different post-deployment exposures that are cumulative that add to our issues. And so, you know, that's completely opposite of a syndrome. Syndrome means everything is the same. Okay, that's why I mean this is deliberate. And the reason why it's deliberate is they're taking it off the ball, like all this biomarker stuff. Like, I really do appreciate Denise too, looking for biomarkers and stuff. But I've come to the realization that there is no biomarker for this. There is no presumptives for this. That we all get whatever progresses from the damage that occurred, and it affects everything in our body, because the main thing that it affects is our central nervous system and our immune systems. Those two systems get damaged, and depending on what kind of damage, the severity of the damage, and the post-deployment cumulative damage that we are all subjected to with the rest of the toxins in our environment, that to the general population who's just getting a tiny dose of it, you know, all along, it doesn't affect them as much as us who had the major hit and then have, you know, toxic sensitivity and stuff. And that sensitivity is our brain saying, I want you to stay alive, get as far away from that as possible. That's why you smell the diesel and feel ill. That's why all this stuff. And I've been learning all this stuff, and we really need to make people aware that all this stuff happening to you is not normal. It's not age. It's not something that everybody feels, with the exception of, we are all being poisoned. You know, we are all being poisoned through our food supply. We're being poisoned through the product supply. We are being poisoned through our environment.
I agree. I agree 100%. And what, you know, because I was talking to you earlier when you were talking, and we brought up on this program lots of times, our kids have no idea the amount of exposure, because our war is not really talked about.
Yeah.
So through other platforms, through the Gulf War illnesses and Operation Truth Seekers and all that stuff, the word's getting out now. And people are starting to say, hey, wait a second. This stuff is getting out of hand. People are not trusting like they used to trust their governments. The people aren't trusting anything. But why should they? Why should anybody sit out there and trust one thing any government says when they can do it to their own troops?
Yes. And that's the key words, do it to their own troops, because this isn't the enemy that we're talking about that did this to us. It is us. We did it to ourselves, and, you know, there's no accountability for it, and there's no correction. And exactly like you said, you know, and that's the thing too, is it first happened with the World War I vets, with the mustard gas and all that stuff, you know, when this stuff first appeared on this planet, or at least, you know, used in large form like that. And then it went to the World War II vets, you know, and then, you know, which includes the nuke vets. And then it went to the Vietnam vets, and then Desert Storm vets, and now the rest of the Gulf War vets, right? So it's just getting worse and worse and worse, and impacting more and more and more people. And the thing is, too, the nature of this damage, it really does affect our mind. It affects our brain. I have brain damage. I have brain damage in my MRI with hemorrhaging, white matter loss, gray matter loss, and the VA calls this normal and old age. I'm 51.
Yeah, they're crazy. I tell you, that's the biggest load of bullshit I've ever heard in my lifetime.
I mean, it literally says in my MRI, I have hemorrhaging. So So my first MRI was one without contrast. Of course, they're not going to do the one with contrast because it's going to show more, right? So they try and do a little slip in there. Okay, we're going to fool Mr. Johnson here, show him it's all normal, right? So they do that, and they write in there, hemorrhaging by my thalamus, um, which is the common area that causes all of us these issues, especially our dysautonomia. Have you heard of the word dysautonomia?
Oh yeah. Yes, I have.
The director of the Palo Alto Risk, Dr. Ashford, who uh, founded that thing and has been running it ever since in Palo Alto, he gave me that diagnosis of dysautonomia. And that was the first time I ever heard of that. And it basically means that all the automatic systems in your body are not working very well. Your brain stem is damaged, and all the little muscles that push your blood around in your arteries and veins, those don't work very well anymore. All the muscles in your gastro system aren't working very well anymore.
I-
Your sleep, your sleep disturbance, it doesn't work. I get like 5 minutes of deep sleep every night, and that's the sleep that you need to restore, for your body to restore itself.
Right, right.
So
And everything we're passing on to our children. And Teresa made a good point in here. Our children's DNA is all messed up from, this
yeah,
stuff.
I
But
fully believe that too. There is a definite DNA damage that occurs, and my kids have issues too.
oh yeah, I believe it 100%. But here's the one thing is, so do you have neuropathy and everything?
I do, but okay. Let me finish telling you about the VA here really
Yeah.
quick. I know I tried a bird's eye view and I got distracted into all these other things, but
No,
I
it's
think they're
fine. It's
important things to
fine.
talk about. So and that's another thing too, is I do have so much information in my long term that I'm applying to new things that I'm learning. As far as, the medical world is pretty similar to the electronics world. Our body, our nervous system is a circuit that runs on electricity. I know the deep theory of how this stuff works. Am I a doctor? No. But am I an engineer? Yes. Do I know how physics and atoms and all that stuff still works? Not as much as I used to, but I still do. And I can apply all this stuff to the medical and kind of make sense of it, because it's a system that operates the same. And when you take your computer, right, if you put a bullet through the side of it and damage the bus, the communication system of the computer, do you think it's going to work that well anymore? No, it's not. It's the same thing. We get damage to our system that's irreversible, and like you said, you can't cure it, which is another reason why they're hiding it from us, by the way, in my opinion, is that they know this damage caused to us has shortened our lives or flat out killed us, and a lot of people have died. The first 10 years, a big hunk of people died. The next 10 years, a big hunk of people died, and big next 10 years, dying early, it 30 years ago, it was people in their 20s were dying. If you were there like I was, very young, if you were older, then you may have died too in that same time frame, and you were just older, but it was within a few years of the Gulf, is what I'm saying. And now I feel like I'm terminal in this next round of people that are dying. I had 2 people on my ship die recently, experiencing the same exact kind of problems I am. Swelling left leg, MS, like neuropathy, stuff like that. So, the problem is, the problem that I've been having, and also everybody else from what I see, is those first 10 years, the VA was pushing me away from like even thinking this stuff was real. And I knew it was, because I felt it every day. I looked in the toilet every time I had a bowel movement and said, this isn't normal. And, I know, and I would have, night sweats. I would have sleep disruption. I've never really been able to sleep my whole adult life. I've been tired, my whole adult life. I've been in pain my whole adult life. The only difference between 30 years ago and now is that it happens more frequently and more often, and it was less frequent, less severe, back then. And it's just been a steady path to worse and worse and worse. And so going into the VA, being pushed away, I finally just threw my hands up and I'm like, I'm sick of this. They're not helping me. They're not admitting what's going on. I know they're lying to me. I don't trust them. So I'm going to, luckily I had an education and I had gone through school all those few years, got my bachelor's degree, was in the, starting my career, and I had a really good job with really good insurance. And I'm like, screw the VA. I'm going to go out into the private world and see if they can help me, because at least they're probably going to be honest. Right. That's what I thought. So I go out into the civilian world and spend all this. Well, actually, at first I wasn't spending money because I had really good insurance. But after several years and the economy getting worse and people's insurance getting worse and worse and worse, because we're all getting more and more sick, because we all have more and more exposures to these organophosphates that made us sick. Sarin gas is from organophosphates. The pesticides that we used in the Gulf are from organophosphates. All this, the organophosphates in our food supply right now didn't exist back then when we were there. And now it's widespread in the community. That's why everybody's fat. That's why everybody's getting sick. That's why everybody's getting autism, passing autism to their kids, because their DNA is getting damaged from these toxic substances that we are being exposed to on mass scale. And like I said, we took a big hit in 90 with, the untested vaccines, the untested medications, all the toxic exposures, the sarin, the demolition. And the demolition wasn't just airborne, the people that got hit. That stuff fell into the sand, just like Jim Brown has detailed over and over again. With the documentation, it fell into the sand. And once it fell into the sand, it bonded with that sand. And then the wind blew that sand all over the theater, which is why almost every single chemical alarm in the theater went off.
Oh,
which
yeah.
is why they said every single chemical alarm in the theater was false, even though they now admit that some of us were exposed to chemical, sarin and other chemicals. How can every chemical alarm still be false if they finally admitted that was in the theater? It's a lie. It's all a lie. And the reason why they're lying is because the damage is severe, because we cost a lot of money and they want to shirk that responsibility. And that's why they've been hiding it all this time.
Now,
And they will continue to do it. And they are continuing to do it.
And here's another thing. And I'm probably going to piss off a couple people saying this, but I don't care. Whenever it seems like, though, when veterans hit 100%, they're just satisfied. I'm done. They're happy with it.
Yeah.
To me, that's total bullshit. Because number one, there's a lot of people out there that still don't know that they could have loved ones that died 10 years ago. And I mean, it's like, how can y'all just be satisfied? Well, hey, I'm making, $30-something $100 a month. I'm not going to say anything. I'm satisfied with it. You're satisfied?
Well, I can understand that, though. The reason why I can understand that is because the VA is so ready to take away from us. And the VA is purposely, in my opinion, creating a situation to have us stay away. And the reason why they want us to stay away is because it costs them less money. It's all about money. If we didn't cost a lot of money, they would take care of us. And vets that don't cost a lot of money, vets that don't need, dozens of specialists, those are the vets that do get some help. And that's what the VA uses as PR to like, hey, look, these vets are all satisfied, 80% or whatever are satisfied because we fixed this one easy problem for them that had manifested from all their toxic exposures, and we treated them right. And so here's the example of how we treat people. The example of how they treat people should be the lowest common denominator. The people that need 12 specialists like I do.
Right.
That's the vet that you should be looking at. How does the VA treat
Damn
people?
right.
Because I've been told to my face by multiple doctors, clinicians of mine, including my neuropsychologist, I've been told specifically that the VA they are not equipped to handle that situation. Their system is not built to handle a patient who needs 12 specialists. It's just not built that way at all. They don't do it.
Yeah,
and
but then you got these guys that have never been to war, that's only been in,
yeah,
I mean, they learn a system that, hey, if y'all just say, you're having nightmares or this, and this, you can get out and, on a medical discharge and file PTSD because they really can't prove. Them are the ones who are hurting our system.
Yeah.
I mean, there are really guys
That's
out there
true.
that have PTSD.
Yes.
And there's people out there that are
that's
using the
a
damn
separate
system.
issue. That's definitely a problem, a separate issue. What I'm talking about is the actual VA system. The VA healthcare system itself is not even designed to help us chronic multi-symptom illness. As a matter of fact, Dr. Hunt, I don't know if you've heard of him, but he is one of the top VA researcher doctors. Denise Nichols knows him on a first name basis. He actually just came out, and she just posted this actually about a month ago or so. He came out with a research study basically saying that the VA downplays and doesn't help people with chronic multi-system unexplained illnesses, and it needs to be taken more seriously, because just like you said, and it's the facts of things, we can't cure it, but there are specific things that are happening to us that can be either corrected or slowed down, so we either have a better quality of life and or a longer life. And those interventions can be done, and they're not being done because, of course, it takes specialists to figure out exactly what those interventions are, and it costs the VA a lot of money, time and money to do this. So they do not want to do this.
Right.
They do not want to do this. That's why they've been lying to everybody about Desert Storm for 30 years. And Vietnam before that, and the nuke vet and 9/11 responders. It's all the same thing. It's because we have chronic medically unexplained illnesses, multi-system, multi-symptom, which is a lot of money to them. And they would rather kick us to the curb so we die in a year than help us and have us survive 10.
Yeah, most of the stuff that they do here is just mask. They just mask it. Here,
Yes,
mask your pain. Mask
that's how
this.
that's how our whole medical system is in the private world too. It's just treating symptoms. It doesn't ever look at the root. It doesn't ever try and solve the root.
Right. And it's like, okay, guys, we're getting all this money for researching and this, and this. You can find a vaccine that cures something in less than 1 year. There's 30 years and y'all can't cure this. I don't get it. I mean,
it's because there's a lot of reasons for it that, just to sum that little question, bit up, the little piece up, is they have done a lot of research, and they do know a lot of things about what the damage is and how they could maybe start treating some of it. That's actually, I'm sure you're aware of a lot of the latest research. They've in the past few years, that's really coming home. Nancy Klimas and the Boston doctor, I forget who her name is. They have really been honing in on this. But the problem is, the reason why that has even taken that long is because the VA really controls the research. They pay for it. They've been controlling it. And looking into chemical and toxic damage to the human body has been excluded.
Right.
Sarin gas being the cause has been excluded. So they go, well, this looks a lot like organophosphate or nerve damage, blah, blah, blah. Oh, but it can't be because it wasn't the,
Right.
So the VA purposely, I mean, that's all documented. It's still in effect. As a matter of fact, they're talking about pulling all funding this year.
I
Is the
know.
thing.
I know.
So
and I don't get it. It's like, guys, you know what? Get off your dead asses. I tell everybody, I know my senators who vote for the bills. I know my congressmen who vote for the bills. The ones that votes against it, the ones I'm going after. I'm going to make it clear in my area that, hey, these guys don't give a crap about the vets. This isn't a political issue, people. That's what this is, a human right. We served our country. All we ask is take care of us. That's it.
We didn't sign up for our government to harm us and not own up to that and not correct that so other vets don't get harmed. That's the real crime there is, I've learned something in life myself that, it's not a crime if you make a mistake, something that you didn't know, it's not a problem. It's not a problem. People make mistakes all the time.
Right.
As a matter of fact, mistakes is the learning process. That's how you learn. Is the best way to learn is making mistakes, actually, because you're like, oh man, I really screwed up. I'm not ever going to do that again. Right. And that's how you learn. God, there it goes again.
No. I know where your thought process was. It's a great thought process right there. I mean,
yeah, and so, I remember what I was going to say now. So it's not that you make the mistake or do something wrong. That's not a problem. The problem is when you realize that you've done that, or you're told that you've done that, and you still keep doing it.
Right.
That is when it becomes a problem, and that's exactly what we have here, because because the VA. Back to my story again. These are all great tangents, by the way, but let's go back to my story. So as I move into the private world with all this really awesome insurance, where I didn't even have co-pays for specialists, which you don't hear of anymore.
Right.
I'm taking advantage of that. I need my brain scan. I go get an MRI. All this stuff, right? I'm doing all this stuff to find out what's wrong with me. What's wrong with me? They weren't even finding anything wrong. You know what I mean? I mean, they were seeing stuff. There's some stuff seen on my MRI. It wasn't as good back then. It's better now. The VA did no contrast before. When they did contrast, they saw even more than what they saw before. And they still tell me my brain's normal still. And you would see stuff like that, but you wouldn't get that part, right? Like from the private world, you go, oh man, we see this. This isn't in your head, right? They're not saying that at all like the VA does. This isn't normal. This isn't in your head, but we don't know how to fix it. We don't know what it came from. We don't know what's happening here. That was my answer. And then as the insurance got less and less, because my career was going from the engineering departments, the place I was working in the research and development and engineering spaces for Motorola, and, to create cell phones, to create smartphones. That's what I was working on in the late 90s. I've gone from that to I can't even get a tech support job at a call center anymore. And I did those jobs too towards the end of my career. $12 an hour tech support. That's the job I could get anymore, because my cognitive impacts were so great by that point without me even realizing what's going on. And that's the thing too. You don't realize what's going on. And so I'm going into an interview saying, oh, I'm hot shit. I do this and this and this. I can multitask like crazy, like all this stuff, right? I'm a badass. And then they do a few tests on me and I'm failing, and I'm not realizing I'm failing. And they're like, okay, thanks for the interview. We'll contact you later. And then
Mm,
I'm wondering why I didn't get the job, right?
mm, that's
So
crazy.
so that's what's happened to me in my whole life. And I lose jobs and, because of the cognitive getting worse and worse, and I'm forgetting, and it's not just memory, and that's the greatest disservice to us all, is this whole notion that, oh, as you get old, all this stuff just starts happening to you. It's just old age. Oh, I always forget stuff. I forget where I put down my keys 1 second ago. That is not normal. It is not normal for you to forget to put down the keys that you just put down where they are. That's not normal. And that's not old age. So, and that's what we get a lot. I was telling Denise this, I think I've been on her radio show the past several times. And, you know, we, we as vets are independent. We don't want handouts. We don't want people helping us. We're used to helping other people. That's what we do. That's how we've been wired, or that's the type of people we are. And that's what attracts us to it. And then they train us to be like that. And that's who we are. So many people on my ship are sick and have had like serious operations, losing kidneys, all these different things happening. And they just think it's bad luck and old age. And talking to them, saying, no, I have all this too, and I have other stuff too, and you're probably going to have other stuff too. And I know I know some of them aren't even sharing the health information with me because it's a vulnerability, and the VA wants to take everything away from us. So once somebody does get to 100%, they just want to lay low and be quiet, because rocking the boat usually shakes you out of the boat
No, that's
in
true.
this system. And so that's why I understand that, to remember that point. See, this is how disjointed my mind is. I can't even focus on one thing. And I know I'm giving out a lot of information, and I apologize if I'm bouncing around and being confusing to people, but it all ties together. All of this mess ties together, and it makes our life hell. It's so hard for me to get through the day just to do basic stuff that I could do without even thinking before. I could do while I'm multitasking and thinking of research and development before. Now I can't even think of research and development. I can't even do that anymore. Every new thing I learn, every web page I read, I have to read it twice because I know that I missed something the first time.
Yeah.
I have pockets of my time that disappear because I don't remember it. I watch a whole movie that I wanted to watch, that I am interested in, which I have less I'm interested in lately, growing over the years. And especially, like, I don't even like the things I like anymore because I'm so tired. I'm so in pain, and my mind is going so much that this is what happens. That's what depression is. And the VA just calls it depression, but it's really more than that. It is so much more than that. It's my whole health. It's my liver, my fatty liver, my obesity, my high blood pressure, my high blood sugar, my breathing problems, my skin issues, my new pain here, my new pain there, you know, um, all this stuff. My fingernails don't grow anymore. I don't have any dreams anymore. I wake up exhausted after a full night's sleep with a CPAP, you know, um, all these things, and I tell them I'm having all these things going on, and they're just in denial. And some of them, and this is why I think that I would be a lot worse off if I know some of them were like average intelligence back then, right? And those are the ones that you can't even talk to now. You can't tell them to go to the VA and get help. They're just, some of them blocked me on Facebook because I'm really wanting to help them out. And I'm not even being aggressive or anything. I'm just trying to talk to them as brothers. We used to be brothers.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah. I mean, there are some people that will think that some people think that we are insane, but
yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's true. Some of them do. Some of them, will sit there and say, this really isn't happening to y'all, and then
It's denial, man. It has to be denial.
it
They know
is.
it is. They know it's happening to them. And it's denial, man. It has to be.
Well, a lot of them don't want to deal with it. That's what a
Yeah.
lot of people that I've come across. There's people out there that don't even want to discuss it, don't want anything to do with it. Just just they want to forget about it. But
Yeah.
the bad
Like
thing
I said,
is,
like, nobody can tell us what's wrong with us. And so you go in to try and get help and you just get shamed and blamed and distracted on, they say, they say everything that's going on with me right now is because of my weight. I'm like, no, my weight is because of everything that's going on with me.
right, right. And
And, and so there's this aspect of it that people don't want to face. And the problem is when you don't face it, it gets worse and worse and worse. And you're eventually, and I think that's the problem right there, is so many of us, because we don't want handouts, because we like to help other people, because we don't want to mess with it, because we have so many other stresses in our lives, just trying to stay afloat because of all these issues. All this impacts our ability to make money, which causes every problem in the world, right? Can't pay the bills, relationship problems, all the above. So we're too busy dealing with all this other stuff, and we're all so tired. But the thing is, a lot of us can still function,
right,
right? At least enough to where we're winging it and we're barely making it by. Or some people are doing better. They got lucky. They had got into a lot of money, and maybe they're better. But the point is we think we're okay now, but there's going to be a moment where you're going to go, okay, I am not okay right now.
right.
And we don't know how that's coming. Is it Parkinson's? Is it ALS? Is it MS? Is it stroke, heart attack? All the above, right? It can manifest in many different ways depending on what our biology is, what we were exposed to, and how long we were exposed to it.
Yeah, I had a 70-year-old man today. I was cutting his hair, and he was like, man, he goes, Kevin, when you get about my age, yeah, I hope you never get to know what chronic fatigue is. I start laughing. I mean, I did. I started laughing. He was like, what? I said,
Yeah,
man, I have that every day. He's like,
yeah,
what? I said, yeah, I got to take B12 shots every other week. He goes, no, I mean, what fatigue really is. I said, no, man, I'm telling you right now, I know what fatigue is. And
yeah.
so I was telling him all about, everything I'm experiencing. He goes, well, then how in the hell do you get up every morning and do your job? I said, I open up my eyes and the first thing I say is, I ain't going to let this beat me. I was like, I'm just not. I'm not going to let this stuff beat me. I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure it doesn't beat me. Because one day I'm going to open up my eyes and it's going to beat me. But until then, I'm going to kick its ass. And that old
Right.
man started laughing. I started thinking, shit, if I'm 70 years old and I tell some kid, you don't know what chronic fatigue is, I'm going to be pretty damn happy to say that,
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And that's the thing too, is we just don't when we're so busy just trying to survive, we don't really pay attention to how much this stuff is affecting us. And because there is this cognitive piece to it, it's impossible for some of us to realize what's happening to us.
Oh, yeah.
And the cognitive piece is probably one of the most damaging pieces to everything, because not only are you not able to know what's going on and or advocate for yourself, which is something that I'm losing the ability to do. I'm losing the ability to advocate for myself because I'm losing the ability to be able to form words into coherent sentences. And right now I'm doing a really good job of it. And I know I'm doing a good job of it. Unless
No.
I'm having a cognitive glitch, and going off on these tangents and not being organized is part of the impairment. that has manifested during this time. But right now I feel better than most times.
Yeah,
It's a flare up situation.
I
It
think you're
comes
doing
and
great.
goes. Yeah, it comes and goes. So sometimes I'm not doing great. And
Yeah.
as a matter of fact, me and my wife just got in a fight last night because I misperceived some stuff that wasn't even happening in communication.
Yeah.
And I said some things that I didn't mean to say. Not like I wasn't lashing out. I just didn't articulate the right words. And she took it the wrong way, as she should, because I didn't say the right thing. And so it creates a lot of conflicts, even with the people that love you and want to help you,
Oh yeah.
much less some stranger or work, associate or boss who doesn't really give that much of a crap about you overall or know you that well. Right.
Right.
So,
And on top of that, Jason, is I think the ones who actually suffer a lot are the spouses and the children.
yes.
And I mean,
Yeah, and that's what I mean by the cognitive piece is the
yeah,
worst because it affects it. I didn't get to that part because I went off into great detail about us, but yes, the other thing is us not just being able to advocate for ourselves and know what's going on, but how our relationships are impacted by it and how that affects all of society, right? Because if we're just going around angry all the time, we're not realizing that we're angry, then we're creating damage through society, right?
that's true.
We're yelling at the grocery person, we're yelling at this person or that person, and all those people feel that, and it's all unnecessary damage. If we knew what was going on, if we were treated, then it would be a different scenario. There would be some correction to that, or at least knowing, you would at least know, even though you may not be able to control it, you would know, and your caregiver or family would know. So while they're with you, they could say, I'm sorry, he's had a lot of toxic exposures or something. He really doesn't mean this. He's just upset. And that can alleviate that person in society who's feeling that attack.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's not because we want to attack somebody. It's because we have brain damage and our brains are in survival mode and something just clicked where our brain felt threatened by that person. It could have been a smell, the perfume that they had because it's chemically smelling. And our brain's like, get the hell out of here. How do you get out of here? Create an argument and a disruption and you'll be whisked away. Your
Yeah.
brain knows that. You don't know that consciously, but your brain knows that, and it's going to drive you there no matter at any cost because it wants to get you away from that smell. It just is one example, right? So, yeah, I mean, so I get into the private world, they're not finding answers. I start having to spend a lot of money on specialists. So what do? I completely give up altogether. Whatever. I'm just going to have to live like this. Nobody knows what's wrong. I'm going to have a heart attack or, lose a leg or something for somebody to see something actually wrong. So why am I spending all this money doing this? I'm going to stop. So that's what I did. I stopped probably around 2012 or so. And in that process around that time, because of all the issues I started having more and more of, high cholesterol, gaining more weight, higher blood pressure, feeling worse, feeling more tired, all that stuff. I'm also, because I'm not getting help, I'm looking for self-help and I'm learning about nutrition. I'm learning about exercise. I'm learning about all the things I need to do for myself. And I start doing them. I put them into practice, right? I start losing weight. I start feeling better. And I'm actually thinking I have beat this thing, right? And this is 2015-ish or so. I'm thinking I beat this thing. I've learned all about nutrition. I'm feeling a lot. Instead of getting worse and worse and worse, I'm starting to actually feel better, right? For once, I'm still not having solid stools, even though I had like raw vegetable diet for a while and I was getting a lot of fiber and, no chemicals and all
Right.
that. Still having diarrhea constantly, but I was feeling better. right? And I was less tired. I wasn't getting more and more tired. I was actually starting to get some relief and starting to feel like I'm getting rested, right? And then all of a sudden, boom, I hit a wall. Just suddenly, instantly hit a wall, and exercise, like moving, made me, I started selling solar because it was the only job I could do. I couldn't do technical jobs anymore. So I started selling solar, sales job. And I was walking around knocking on doors, and knocking on doors is a scary thing, but it became I'd never done it before in my life, never sold anything in my life before, but it became very easy for me because I knew I had to move. And I knew if I kept moving and I moved to make money, I could kill two birds with one stone and lose weight, feel better, get in shape, and beat this thing, right? Eat healthy. So I was doing all that. And I was walking around neighborhoods, no problem, just all day long or whatever, knocking on doors. Hey, you want to talk about solar? And not an issue, loving it, thinking solar is my new career. Forget about, all the stress of the technical world. This is easier. All I have to do is talk to people and be nice and tell them how great solar is. And I know a lot about it and I care about the planet. So this is a really great job. I can really feel good about what I'm doing. I'm not working for some corrupt corporation that's screwing over everybody, right? I'm helping people switch to an energy and get rid of their power bill, to own their power instead of rent it and pay the power company every month. I'm like, this is it, right?
Right.
And so I'm thinking I beat it, and I just forgot all about Gulf War, right? So when I hit that wall during that time in 2015ish, when I'm doing that, it became hard to knock on doors, right? And I would go out and I just get more and more exhausted and more exhausted. And my health really I put on like another 40 pounds just suddenly, and my health just was getting worse and worse. And I'm getting like mostly in bed. And I ended up trying to sell solar from bed in 2019, 2020. And luckily I got with a company that let me do that. And I did sell solar and I did make somewhat of a living. I still poverty-ish, just above it, but at least I could pay the rent and get food, right? So I was lucky to not become homeless. And these are the kind of situations that send a lot of vets into homelessness.
Right.
And I actually almost did go homeless a couple of times during the period of that from then when it started happening. And 2019, when I finally got a decision on when I filed in 2018 for benefits. And I was lucky to get out of the gate with 70% instead of a big zero, like a lot of people are, or 20 or 30. And 70% still isn't enough, because everything's expensive. But at least, it's about the same as what I was making at solar, barely making it by. And so, I'm very, very grateful for that because I don't know if it's the same for you, but whenever I'm stressed out, I have a direct impact on my pain and exhaustion.
Oh, yeah.
When that stress hits. If I get into a fight with my wife or any sort of stress, I'm feeling it for hours or days afterwards, after it's resolved. And so just that big financial weight was lifted off my shoulder, like, oh, finally, I don't have to worry about, trying to make money just to pay the basic bills to live. But I still have this stress of my health keeps going down, down, down. So for me, the money isn't, one, it's not enough. And I have an appeal to get to 100 and they'll eventually get there at some point, I'm sure, because I'm a lot worse off than most people that have 100. Not that it's a contest or anything either. But I'm just saying
Right.
that, even when I get to 100 at that point, I'm still not going to give up in this. This has become a mission for me because there are so many of us that think that accepting that money is a problem, and it is not. My life, my life was extremely altered from being a Bill Gates, Elon Musk, maybe not as successful as they are, not super billionaires, but at least millionaire, right? I was in on the dot com stuff and electronics and everything. And I had a bright future beyond belief. And it was all destroyed, not because of my actions, because I kept trying I've been trying as hard as I can to do everything my whole adult life. I'm not a slacking, lazy person. As a matter of fact, every day of my adult life, I'm a lifetime learner. Even beyond work, I wouldn't come home and watch TV and drink beer, although I did do that sometimes. I would learn. I learn, and I like learning, and that's hard for me to do now. And that's almost even the hardest thing, because learning was my passion.
Yeah.
Learning new things, being surprised by this new technology, or, helping create new technologies. That was my passion, and I can't do that anymore. So as I'm not worried about the money, as much, my health is still going downhill. And I'm still getting, even when I went back to the VA in 2016 through 2018, they are still telling me this is all in my head. And even when my test results are starting to show more stuff like elevated liver enzymes, high CRP, high ESR, all these bad things are happening. There's my left leg swelling up like a balloon, and I have venous insufficiency. And they first diagnosed me with early PAD, and I'm all, no, that doesn't make sense. My toes will be turning black and they're red. That means more blood's in there. So if anything, it's PVD, pulmonary vein disorder. It's not getting back to my heart, which explains why it's swelling up, because all the fluid's down in there, right? And when I elevate it, the pain goes away. When I dangle it, it comes back in force. So it's PVD. So they look again. Oh, no, it's not either of those things. It's venous insufficiency. Okay, well, what do I do for that? Oh, just wear compression socks and lose weight. Take anti-inflammatory stuff. So we keep getting all these solutions that are nothing to do with helping us, or even look at what the problem is. It is just a Band-Aid. It's a cover up. It's right. It's the least thing that the VA can do to kind of acknowledge that they listen to our complaint, which is what they call these things. They call our symptoms and issues complaints. And they look at our complaint, they address it in a form that's acceptable to the system, which is, oh, they have swollen legs and pulmonary vein, or they have venous insufficiency. Just wear compression socks and lose weight, and reverse your age if you can, because it's something that happens mostly to older women. And you get varicose veins, and varicose veins are what causes the PVD. So I start learning all this stuff because I have that inquisitive learning mind, right? And I'm learning. It's hard for me to do it. I'm reading things over and over again so I can finally have it click. And I'm like, wait a minute, I don't have varicose veins. As a matter of fact, that part of my body is the most fit part of my body, because it's hauling around this big old gut. Like, most of my weight is in my gut. I don't have an ass. I don't have, huge legs and calves and all that stuff. It's all in my belly, which is pretty common with a lot of us with DIS Autonomy and organophosphate poisoning. And so, I know I'm rattling on. I'm just
you're
pumping
fine.
out information.
No, you're good.
Just stop me if I'm
you're good. You're doing great. No, I think everybody needs to hear this.
I'm getting a lot of information out here for people to realize that it's a lot more than what we're being told, and they know about this. And a lot of the clinicians down at the PCP level and stuff like that, they don't know about this stuff. As a matter of fact, I'm convinced at this point that most of the clinicians that work for the VA can't make it in the civilian world. They'd be sued for malpractice every day, all day long. And so that's why they work. That's who the VA hires. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Because they have nowhere else to go. They don't seem to care about any of us, at least the ones that I've been working with. And, it's just a good way for the VA to shirk responsibility, because they can just ultimately blame them. Because that's what happens is when lawyers start getting involved and stuff like that, they just blame the clinician. oh, they shouldn't have prescribed you that or didn't do this. Which also, by the way, my swelling leg, they're telling me, oh, lose weight, wear compression socks. Well, it turns out they had me on amlodipine. And one of the side effects for amlodipine is swelling legs. And they've had me on that for 3 years, and they keep telling me, oh, it's your weight, it's this and that. It could have been the amlodipine that did it. And so I told my doctor I want to get off the amlodipine for my blood pressure. It's a supplemental blood pressure medicine. I want to get off of that because of this. And also I'm having intermittent low oxygen levels in my blood too. And I thought it was the venous insufficiency because it makes sense. If your blood isn't getting around, it's not going to be able to oxygenate where you're measuring, right? So it's going to measure low sometimes. And so I'm thinking, okay, that's that's what's causing all this and amlodipine causes venous insufficiency. So here's a medication that the VA is prescribing me. It's causing all these issues with me, and they're telling me it's my fault. And they're not even thinking, oh, it's the amlodipine, until I mention it, until I figure it out 3 years later, because they're still not helping me. And my oxygen levels in my blood's getting alarmingly serious. It drops down into the 70s while I'm sleeping, which they blamed on my CPAP, but I use my CPAP. So they blamed the little bit of mask leak on it. And I'm like, well, are my events down? Yeah, your events are down. Okay, well, then I'm not stopping breathing, right? So, and it happened. And not only that, it happens while I'm awake too. And I'm not stopping breathing while I'm awake.
That's
So, I mean,
crazy.
it's just excuse after excuse, and all these excuses, all this blaming. Oh, it's your heredity. You got it from genetics. Oh, you got it from smoking. Oh, you got it because of your weight. All this stuff is just a way for the VA to shirk responsibility from what's happening to us, and that is such a bad thing. I mean, it's happening to millions of us, and we're all sick and dying or dead because of it. And I don't know how to fix it. You can't even, congressmen don't care. I'm even in, so get this. So because I've raised such a stink with the VA, they actually put me on the difficult person board. They referred me to them like, this is a problematic person. I forget the name of it. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about or not.
No,
Um,
they literally have
yeah,
a
basically,
board for that.
yeah. So if you're a vet that is dangerous, or they are having extreme difficulties with in treating, there's a bad person board, basically difficult person board, that evaluates the scenario, and if they find you, the vet, wrong, then you lose your benefits. If they find the clinician wrong, they keep their job, and everything keeps getting wiped under the rug again, and everything goes back to normal and nothing happens. In my situation, they found a tie that kind of both of us were causing problems, but they're not going to take any action with me right now, is what they said. So, and me being difficult is just basically posting everything in my Healthy Vet, keeping a paper record of it, because talking to any of these people does nothing. The VA does nothing, and I hope everybody understands this. The VA does nothing until it's on paper. If it's not in your record, if it's not in writing, I mean, even if it is in the record and on writing, it's still a crapshoot, right? So it's like you have to have things in writing.
Wow.
So all I'm doing is posting in my Healthy Vet. I have this popped up, that popped up. Well, I'm being told that VA PCPs aren't equipped to handle all that information and traffic. They don't have enough time in their day to spend on you for that. That's what I'm told. And so, and that's what we need. We need a clinician who cares about what's wrong with us and wants to get all these clues. I would think doctors, I keep getting told in the VA system, especially for benefits, that they like to tie everything to the source, like what causes the nexus, right? The etiology of the disease. That's the medical world. Like, what causes this? Oh, what causes diabetes? What causes cancer? that's the main thrust of what they're supposed to do and supposed to be interested in, right? Like you'd think a doctor would want to find out, oh, I see this weird thing, what's causing it? And they'd want to learn that nexus. Or so with the VA, it's not that. It's, and even when you're service connected and you have that nexus, they still say, oh, it's your weight. Oh, it's this coffee cream that you use once in the morning, right? So that's part of the shirking responsibility. But anyway, the point I was getting at, I think, with all of that is that none of us are getting help because they are just not equipped for it. And I started like saying stuff like that in my healthy vet, like, you guys are not helping me. And I literally was being ignored. Like, they're supposed to have a 3 business day turnaround. I would submit something new, like this new messed up things happening on my skin here, or, I'm feeling this pain here, or whatever, whatever was going on at the time, I'd submit that in there and I wouldn't get an answer. And then I'm like, why are you guys not acknowledging this? Right. And so finally, in talking with my neuropsychologist, who's kind of working on the pain issues and also the mental side that the VA always wants to go to, he actually did my mindfulness meditation thing that I went through. And, the VA wants us to do those, the CBTs, the Tai Chi, the acupuncture, all that stuff is their new mode of treating Gulf War illness. Right. So I was doing all that. And he actually is one of 2, the other one, not as much, but he is the one clinician at the VA that I think actually cares about me and what's going on. And because of that, he stuck his neck out. And quite interestingly enough, it seems like when he started sticking out his neck for me, he went from a full-time VA neuropsychologist, and now he's a part-time, not as involved, and actually outsourced VA neuropsychologist. So I don't know if that's because of me. I think it is, but because he went to bat for me, he talked with Dr. Ashford of the Risk in Palo Alto. He talked with Dr. Hunt that I mentioned, who just wrote that research that the VA needs to pay more attention to these medically unexplained illness and symptoms. And he tells me that he has arranged a new pilot for Gulf War Desert Storm vets on that we have the risk involved. Dr. Hunt's an environmental doctor, expert, and your primary care team, along with a psychologist. So he was told basically to pass over the keys to this other psychologist, right? And I know why they're doing that. I don't think he realizes it, but I know why they're separating me from him, right? Because he wants to help me. And so he's developed this team that's supposed to be a pilot for all us Gulf War vets to listen more to what's going on with us and to treat us better. And so along with that, I think what helped spur that too, and why he went out on the limb, is because I've called the President Vet Hotline 5 times in the past 4 years for various things, mostly to switch PCPs, until the last call I made, which was just prior to assembling this pilot. And on that call, I basically told the White House hotline, because normally they tell you, okay, what's the problem? And they listen to you and they're like, okay, we'll send you an email and you probably won't hear from anybody. And, hopefully your issue gets resolved. So that's normally how it goes. So this time I'm like, no, we're not going to do that again. I've been told that 4 times, and here we are, things aren't being resolved. And here I am on yet another PCP, and the same things are happening. So I want this to go to the president's desk. And this is before Veterans Day and all that. This is a few months ago. And I asked for an escalation to the president. I want to talk to the president's office about what's going on with me and all Gulf War vets, because we are all being treated like garbage. I'm in the forums. I've been watching for the past 4 years. I've been watching everything. And my cognitive things have been impacting me more recently, and it's harder for me to do it, but I still do it. And I still remember the things that I've seen. And the things that I've seen are a lot like the things I've been going through. And that means I'm not the only one. And this is a systemic issue. And my neuropsychologist is telling me it's a systemic issue. And my new psychologist is telling me it's a systemic issue, and they're not equipped for that. And that's why we're doing this pilot. But the thing about this pilot is I go into the first meeting face to face, which I didn't want to do because of COVID.
Right.
Right. But I'm like, okay, whatever, this is just another chance for him to kill me off. Right. So I go in there and I'm expecting some change. Right. And, before I go into that really quick though, just to finish the president thing, I did receive an email from them saying that this has been escalated to the desk of the president, and I will get a response in 14 days. This is a few months ago, guys. I have not heard anything.
Surprisingly.
Not heard anything. I was hoping that maybe this new pilot was because of that, but I don't know. I wasn't told that it was. When I was told that they would follow up and let me know what's going on. So they even dropped the ball there at the president's desk, right? So that's cover up. That isn't dropping the ball, by the way. It's cover up. But they'll say they dropped the ball. So anyway, back to this pilot thing. So I go in this first meeting thinking, okay, there's going to be all this change. I've escalated the president. I haven't heard back. Maybe that's what this is. Maybe we are going to start getting somewhere. So it was important, I guess, for the psychologist to be there with the medical doctor at the same time. So he was there, and the PCP, who I had one prior meeting with him as a new PCP, so he's brand new. So this is my second time talking to him. And the first meeting went off very horribly. I was told that, and that was from another president escalation just prior to my final one where it was escalated the president. And because they wouldn't switch me again because I had just switched to another PCP, but she told me she didn't even know what Gulf War illness is, and she didn't read up on it, anything that I sent to her, and she's not going to. So I was like, okay, I want another PCP. And so anyway, he's brand new. And in that first meeting I had with him, I found out he's a Gulf War vet too. And I kind of had some hope. I was like, oh, okay. But the context that it was coming in at, how I found out he's a Gulf War vet, I said, us Gulf War vets are usually, and something that I said, and he goes, what do you mean by we? And I said, well, us Gulf War vets that are sick, and he goes, well, I'm a Gulf War vet, like interrupting me, right? And I'm all, are you sick? And he goes, well, not really. So that's how that went, and that escalated, and I didn't want to even see him anymore. So in this whole agreement with the neuropsychologist, I'm having this second meeting with him. And I forgot, sorry to backtrack to that, but I had to give you some context to this. So I'm hoping for that change, right? Because our first meeting didn't go very well. Oh, and by the way, I was going into this meeting knowing that he does have issues. He does have health issues.
Oh,
he told me no. He told me no, but he told my neuropsychologist the truth. And my neuropsychologist told me that truth, which is kind of interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, God, my story, I swear all of our stories probably make a movie, man. Like, this is just insane stuff. Like, so I go from thinking, okay, he has Gulf War illness, or he was a Desert Storm vet, so he might know about this, right? And finally, I got a PCP that I'm talking about the first meeting, right? finally got a PCP, and then it turns all negative, like, well, I'm not sick, you know? And I'm like, and I got shattered, like, holy crap, like, this sucks. This is never going to work, because he's just like my shipmates who actually are sick, but they don't believe in it. And they're telling me I'm some mooch off the government, or I'm just trying to get a free ride, and all these things. Right. So my hopes are shattered. So I'm going into this meeting with all of that behind in my past, and I'm saying, okay, I'm going to give him another chance. And I know he's sick. Even though he doesn't know I'm sick, I know he's sick. So I'm going to help educate this guy through me that he is sick, and he's going to be our best advocate, right? That's what I'm thinking. If I can turn this doctor and show him that I'm having a lot of the problems he has, maybe he'll start realizing, holy shit, I don't know if he's service connected even. I just know he's sick. And I know he says he's a Desert Storm vet. So anyway, the meeting starts off and he's all apologetic. And I'm thinking, great, this is freaking sweet. Like, this is going to work. Pilot program, all us Gulf War vets, they're going to change the way we're treated. I'm seeing all this new stuff about, new presumptives, and they're counting burn pits. And I'm on the burn pit registry. I was accepted into it. I applied. I don't know if anybody else has. They don't just let you into there either if they check the records and say, no, you weren't anywhere near this shit. So I'm hearing all this stuff about burn pits and John Stewart, all his activism with the 9/11 responders and toxic exposures. And I don't know, at the beginning of last year, there was something about the Toxic Exposures Act of 2021, and that vaporized and turned into these presumptives, and now they want to axe all our funding. But anyway, I'm all hopeful that, things are going to start turning for all of us, and they're getting all this pressure on all this stuff. All these new claims are coming in. They're talking about it in the media. Things are going to start to change. I'm really hopeful. And he starts off apologetically, I'm really sorry about how that first time went. We're doing this. And he's all on his best behavior in front of this psychologist, right? Telling me, we're going to listen to you, and we're going to, make sure that we really look into what's going on. And it's going to be a learning process for all of us, and it's going to be a long road, but we can do it. And I'm just thinking, great, this is all good. This is like better than any experience I've ever had with the VA happening right in this moment. Right. And this is just a couple months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so then he's all, well, what is your number one concern? And I said, my brain, because I was diagnosed with dysautonomia by the director of the Palo Alto RIS, blah, 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 blah. That's my biggest issue. All my automatic systems are failing. I'm worried about oxygen to my brain stem, because my oxygen in my blood is intermittently low, and the VA won't give me oxygen. And he knows about this issue, because he already knew about that from the first meeting, and saying that none of it matters, and my oximeters are wrong or whatever. And so he did order an overnight test, and it did show impairment too, by the way, in between that first bad meeting and this second one, right? So I knew he saw that data, and I knew we discussed that, and he still downplayed that before this whole team thing, which is another reason why I'm done with this guy, because he doesn't believe what's going on with me. I'm done with him. But it had all changed, and he's asked me about my brain, and I said, that's it. The brain controls the whole body. So if that's messed up, that's my biggest worry. And he immediately pulls up my MRI. He starts looking at my MRI, and he immediately tells me the summary. Well, they did this MRI and it says normal. I said, why don't you read what the MRI says? Read about the hemorrhaging and stuff like that. You go, oh, there's no hemorrhaging in here. There's nothing. I said, read deeper. And then he read some other notes, the notes that I saw. And he goes, oh, it does mention some non-specific hemorrhaging and stuff. And I said, see, this is exactly what I'm talking about. This is not helping. And, why don't you look at the next MRI with contrast, and then talk to me about hemorrhaging in there too. And then that started to turn into an argument a little bit. And then the psychologist had to go. Right.
Oh,
And so the
no.
psychologist goes, and all of a sudden the good behavior turns into bad behavior again. And he starts just like downplaying and minimizing. He's all, well, you know, it's non-specific and your brain looks fine and I'm looking here and da 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 da. And then he's all, you know, well, the time's starting to run out. And, you know, we didn't even get to anything else. He just asked what my main worry was, right? Not the dozens of other things that are going on with me, the neuropathy that they don't even really know much about. And so doesn't know any of that. Well, the time's getting long, you know, and it's an hour appointment too. He made it a longer one than the normal for all of this, but it was coming up on that hour. And the psychologist had left at like the 40-minute mark. And he's all, well, you know, we'll just keep going day by day and see how things go, which is almost the same thing he told me in the first visit, where he told me that the VA's done all sorts of looks into what's wrong with me and there isn't really anything wrong. So, and you can't cure Gulf War illness, and fibro's serious and gastro issues are serious. And, you know, you just have to live with it and we'll just take it day by day. And other than that, there's nothing wrong with you. And so he's basically repeating that again in different words. And he goes, we'll have an appointment in 3 months. So, and I didn't preface all this. Part of this whole pilot was supposed to emphasize that they would listen to our issues, at least pretend that they cared and address them. Well, here we went over my main concern, and we spent almost a full hour on that, with him downplaying and minimizing what's going on. And actually, before the psychologist left, he's supposed to be my advocate, he jumped in and said, well, that doesn't mean that you're not feeling these things, you know, to make sure I knew. But that doesn't matter. What matters is he's downplaying the medical evidence, right? And there are further looks that can be done besides just MRIs. There's all sorts of things they could be doing. So, and that's what's not getting done. And that's the problem with any of us. Everything gets dead-ended. My breathing problem gets dead-ended to asthma with no follow-up. Just take some inhalers. My gastro gets dead-ended to IBS. Well, you have IBS. Oh, well, you know, no treatment, no follow-up, nothing. And, you know, I can get that with the things they can't resolve, but there are things they can resolve or look farther into, but they don't. And a good example of that is when they finally diagnosed me with that venous insufficiency. I pushed to get a referral to a vascular specialist because that's all a little tester person did. And my PCP, and I guess a vascular specialist looked at the results of the test they did to test my veins. It's a vein test that they do. I guess they read that, but anyway, I go into that guy and I'm telling him about us and all the problems we have and his Gulf War vets, and I'm like, everything gets dead ended, nothing gets looked into. He goes, hold on, let me grab the resident, you know, like the main boss, you know, the head vascular person. And they looked at my charts and they looked at everything, came back in the room. They reversed my venous insufficiency because I don't have mangled legs, that I have very fit legs, that my vascular should be the best there. It was either the amlodipine causing it or something, but she reversed it and called it medically unexplained. So, you know, you have to keep pushing and pushing, and you finally, like I went through 5 diagnoses to finally get to the answer that I have medically unexplained venous insufficiency, which made me look deeper. And I found out it could be the amlodipine causing it. And it seemed to be resolving a bit since I quit the amlodipine. And my new PCP that's on this new pilot team, he even agreed that I should see my venous insufficiency going away, but he didn't agree that my intermittent low oxygen in the blood would go away. He thinks that that's permanent. So, you know, it's just, you have to push and push and push, and then you don't get the answer. And, the answer you get might not even be the right one. I still don't think it's even just the amlodipine. It's more than that, because I'm having system-wide breakdown, not just one thing. It's not just my cardio. It's everything. So
Well, kind of like
I know
on,
I've been talking for a long
no,
time,
it's
but
like kind of like on my test when I went to a neurologist. He said we're going to run every test we can to figure out how you got neuropathy, and I was kind of like, huh. And I said, okay. So he checked me for Crohn's. He checked me, I mean, for every test you can have neurologically. And he said, but the only way we can do this is he got with the gastro. And this is what I like about my doctors. Now, I can tell you, my neurologist and my gastro, they worked as a team. And my
wow.
yeah. And so what they did was they ran all these tests and they looked at them together. So now let's run these. Now let's run these. And finally, they said, all right, let's give him a colonoscopy and an endoscopy. Let's see if it is this B12 that's causes neuropathy. And so they did it, and come to find out my B12 spores were burned off. And only way that can happen is chemicals. And so that's how they were able to determine that.
What is that? That might help me out.
Well, what it is whenever I did colonoscopy, they were able to tell that because I lose my B12, I can't digest B12 or vitamin
B12
D.
vitamin.
Yeah. I literally had to
They've been
take
looking
injections
for that a lot for me recently. Now I know why.
Yeah. And so when they did it, they found out that my B12 spores are burned. So what they did is they determined that, okay, that's the cause. That's what caused your neuropathy was your B12, the deficiency of it. And so it's not irreversible. It can only get worse. But as long as I take my B12 injections and take all the medicine, I'll be okay over time. But my problem more with the VA is, why is it different everywhere else?
Yeah, it's supposed to be uniform, and that's the thing, is we all get different treatment, and the thing about the clinicians too is some of them do want to help, and I do think some of my clinicians did want to help in the beginning, but when they see how complicated it is,
it's
you
frustrating
become the
for
problem
them.
of their day, right? You're the messed up scenario that they don't want to deal with, and the reason why it gets to that is because they can't. The VA, I've been told by these professionals specifically that the VA system isn't set up to help us, and so I asked that question: why isn't it?
Right, and that's a good point. John just put down that he's learning about inability to digest certain foods and stuff. And I mean, that's the one thing that after I did that one test and they realized that what's wrong with my digestive system, it was chemically burned, but they can't say yes, the Gulf War caused it, even though they can wink and say, I'm pretty for sure the Gulf War caused it.
Yeah.
So
they'll never. They'll say it's Martians from space,
well, let's put it this way.
Before.
My doctor is not old enough to know about Desert Storm. The one that's my neurologist. So, I was like, well, of course you can't say it. You weren't even born then.
Yeah. Right. But where is the chat? I just pulled up because I want to look at the chat too while we're talking.
It's under the Gulf War side effects.
Gulf War. Hold on. I got a meeting here. There we go.
But
okay, now I can see it. Yeah, I clicked on the notification. It didn't. It showed the video, but not the chat. But now I can see the chat.
But
there's Teresa. She sends me really awesome messages. She's amazing. I don't know if you know her, but she's really made me feel good sometimes. Thank you, Teresa.
Yes. I'm getting to know her. I just pretty much have met her, and she's going to be on next week. And,
nice.
Yeah, and so over time, I guess as more and more, we're all going to learn from each other.
Yeah, and that's important. That's one of the that is one of the most important things that I think I want to make a point of right now is that, because I was pushed away, because I'm living with this, because I know there is no cure, because my quality of life is so low and I couldn't get help. I just wanted to forget about it and forgot about it for so long. When it got so bad, I had no choice to forget about it anymore and started getting involved, looking at the forums and joining all the Desert Storm forums. There's yours, Gulf War Side Effects, there's Gulf War Illness, I have my own Desert Storm Truth Seekers. There's so many groups out there that I just join them all, and I read as much as I can. Notifications are turned on. I try and read everything that I can from all the groups, even the Desert Storm, the main just Desert Storm group, which doesn't really focus on the
Right.
illness, but it's one of the largest groups out there, and there's even some stuff posted in there sometimes that I've really learned from. Somebody just posting their experience, and I thought, I'm the only one that this is happening to, or there's very few of me out there. And by doing that, by connecting into all those groups and reading and interacting with people, I've interacted too, like Teresa and some other people that have spent the time to interact. I've learned so much from them on myself that's really been able to help me. And I know I've helped some other people too. And it's a really good feeling to know that you're not only getting help, but you're helping other people too. And all we have to do is share our experiences. And
I agree.
that's going to help make everything better.
I agree 100%. Well, Jason, it was a pleasure talking with you. And I want
Yeah,
you
same.
I want you to come back onto the platform and talk to me. I want to know what's going on with you, and especially, definitely after you have your 3-month talk again, will you come back on and share your experience?
Well, I think we probably need to talk before then because I'm not done with that story yet.
Okay.
So we
Yes.
could just pick up where I left off, where I had that meeting and things went south again, and there is more to it from there that you are not going to believe. It's incredible, but hopefully I see him before 3 months. I mean, yeah, I guess maybe I only saw him a few weeks ago, so it is still 2 months away. But I have some stuff going on right now that I just need help, and that's the whole point of it. That I just want to readdress kind of where I left off is I was told the whole point of this pilot is to listen to us, to hear what we are saying, and to address our issues. And all I got was, see you in 3 months.
See,
You
that's
know,
crazy.
and the whole point of this, I was told specifically by my neuropsychologist that part of the reason of this pilot is for that, and to have, because they're not set up to see us frequently. That's another thing. That's
Right.
part of why the system is not built for us, for them to even operate in and help us, is because they are not allowed. It's bad for us to keep coming back. It looks bad on the clinician if, I think they get bad marks for it or something. I don't know, but there's just this, their performance is measured on fixing your problem, getting you out the door, and you don't come back. And that's really what it's designed for. So, and he's just back in that mode. He doesn't want to deal with it, and so he's pushing it through, kicking the can 3 months down the road. And I've even contacted this psychologist portion that's interfaced directly into that team, that's at that same VA center, on the same care team. He's supposed to be my advocate, and I told him the next day, I'm like, dude, this is, what the hell's going on here? It's supposed to be more frequent, but I'm being told 3 months. What's going on? And he's like, well, I'll let the team know that. And then I get a letter in the mail just a few days later, and it basically said, hey, thanks for, discussing that first visit, and blah, blah, blah. And we'll see how things go. because I do have some tests. Like I just had a sore removed from my mouth that he called cancer. So like they're saying I'm all full of anxiety and I'm like a hypochondriac, right? And after the psychologist leaves and he looks at the sore in my mouth, that was the second thing we talked about. I'm sorry. We had the brain and then my mouth. He looked at my mouth and at the sore that's growing in there. And I know it's not dental. He goes, "Oh, that looks like it could be cancer." You don't say that to some
No
patient that
shit.
yeah. And this is right before the Christmas break, and I just didn't even get that appointment till like 5 days ago, and they luckily gave me the results within a day. I've been like dying, like, oh God, I hope it's not cancer. And they're like asking, oh, did you chew tobacco? Da, 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 da. No, it's my toxic wounds, you jerks. Like, hello, And so, I mean, the story goes on more from that. And I know you want to wrap up, but that's probably a good place to leave it is,
Yes.
just leave it there with the mouth thing, and just remind me.
I
We'll
will.
continue on from the mouth thing, the cancer that doesn't exist. Luckily, they said no, it's not cancer. It's just inflamed tissue. But anyway,
Okay, we're gonna leave it there, but we're gonna bring you back on and finish that story, and then we'll bring you back again for the 3-month so checkup that they're gonna do on you. And I cannot believe he told you that looks like cancer. And holy crap!
I know. This is the guy that is a Gulf War vet. He says he's not sick, but he is. And so he's and okay, so there's the whole trust issue there, right? And I get why I trust him. I could trust him if he started being like a decent person. Because I get that. I get why he's in denial. It's just like my shipmates or whatever.
Right.
And anybody else. I get it. And I really do want to keep working with this team to hopefully make an impact for all of us. And this pilot program stuff is probably not even true. I'm probably not in they're just saying that because it's more damage control, but we can hope, right?
No, that's right.
And I still want to push and I still want to try, and I'm still going to keep doing that. I'm not going to give up. It's my life mission. I'm going to go to the grave trying to get me and everybody else help because we need it. And we need, just like you said at the beginning of the program, we need to do this for the future. We need to stop this from happening to anybody else because it's still ongoing.
I agree 100%. 100%. I agree. Well, I
thank you, sir.
Hey, I thank you for coming on, Jason, and we'll be staying in touch, buddy.
Thank you, sir.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
Okay. Bye.
All right. Thanks. Y'all, please go to my website at gulf4sideeffects.wordpress.com or email me at kevinsimon@gulf4sideeffects.com. And please help support this podcast and the veterans by clicking on the link below. Thank you for your support.